Welcome to the Empower Your Fitness Empire YouTube channel. Fitness and wellness coaches, if you have an online coaching offer or you have a hybrid coaching offer and you're selling your core offer for anywhere priced at $1,500 to $5,000, you've invested in coaching programs and mentors and systems, funnels, maybe even ran some ads before, or you're currently running ads, but you're not exactly where you want to be. And you just don't see the things trending in the right direction, right? You kind of feel like you're on this hamster wheel, revenue isn't compounding month after month, and you've just hit a plateau, right? This video is definitely for you. In this video, we're not necessarily talking about marketing, sales, strategies like that, right? But it's like once you actually get the right system, the right strategy, how to consistently implement it so you can actually start seeing your revenue compound month after month after month and not have to always feel like you're emotionally drained, you're spiritually drained, you're mentally drained, and you're burnt out, and you stop doing everything all together and kind of, it's this repeated cycle of going back to the things that you were doing before. So here's the thing, most coaches, they get to a point where they have leads coming in, calls are being booked, appointments are being booked on the calendar, new clients enrolling every single month. They actually have a positive ROAS, or a positive return on ad spend. Then they run into a couple small issues. Their ad account gets shut down, or they don't close enough clients in a week or in a month, right? And after 2 to 3 months, they stop and they go right back to what they were comfortable doing before. Two reasons why that's happening. One, they're not tracking their data, or two, they don't actually know how to read the data to make data-driven decisions. So you might have had somebody set up your Go High Level dashboard or any type of tracking system, and maybe those things are tracking automatically, but you don't look at that dashboard, you don't look at your KPIs when it comes to actually making decisions. If you need to change something, if you don't, if you need to spend more money on ads, if you need to pull back, right? If you need to focus on sales, are we focusing on the funnel? Are we focusing on copy? Is it client retention? You don't really know where your focus needs to go. So you just kind of make emotional decisions and start, messing around with things in the business, and you're not 100% certain that these levers need to be pulled in the business. Or maybe you're somebody and you're like, okay, before you start running ads, you have a game plan, just throwing spaghetti at the wall, right? You're like, okay, I'm gonna go in there and start, messing around with things, playing around with things, right? You're just guessing at this point, and then maybe you set up ads for 1 month and then you shut it down. And then you say things like ads don't work, or you start trying to post 3 to 4 times on Instagram and TikTok trying to grow your audience and get leads and clients that way. As I talked about in my previous video, making sure that you have a CEO operating system, right? That is very, very vital when it comes to scaling your business, especially if you're somebody trying to scale to 30 to 50K plus months with your coaching business. But once you get that type of system, now we actually need a financing system. Financing system can be used with your own clients, how your own clients can fund your online coaching or hybrid coaching business. Because listen, here's the reality. If your business cannot consistently turn cash collected into more clients, into more revenue and more retained clients, eventually what'll happen, you'll burn out, you'll run out of cash, you'll max out credit cards, and then you'll be right back at square one, or in a worse position than you were to begin with. So today I want to show you the exact way I think about growing and scaling a coaching business. And if you wait to the end, I'll have a special gift that you can use immediately inside of your coaching business and start getting the next client to finance the next 1 to 3 new clients for your high ticket coaching offer. Most coaches are undercapitalized right now. Most coaches make emotional decisions instead of data-driven decisions. They don't understand economics, and most coaches are scaling in revenue. They're not scaling cash flow, right? They're trying to hit a target as far as what they want to make on a monthly basis, but they don't look at things from a macro perspective. They look at things from a micro perspective, right? They only judge how their business is doing versus how it performed in the last 48 hours, right? Or how it performed in the last 7 days, right? We got to look at how it's performing, from a macro perspective, and also let's make some projections as well, right? But we got to look at the right metrics. We got to understand, right? We got to understand, not just know just track the metrics, but we have to really understand and really take a deeper dive into things, right? So that we can make the best decision for the business. Like a lot of coaches are trying to scale feelings. They're chasing income, without really understanding cash flow. And like I said, not just from a micro perspective, but from a macro perspective. This is what I call the client finance growth system. Okay. So I'm going to walk you through how a client pays up front. So the cash that we collect from a brand new client, how to take a portion of that cash that we collect, invest it right back into ads, and how that investment is going to bring 1, 2, or 3 more clients. All right. And then we collect more cash and we keep doing that. And then also how to reinvest again. And then it's just going to compound over time. And this is the real way on how to actually get to 50K plus months. Okay. So the goal is not chasing Excel, right? The goal is to create a self-sustaining growth system where clients fund your actual growth. Okay. So your new clients are going to fund the next one and the next. Now, most coaches, they track the wrong things, or they're tracking things, but they don't necessarily know what it means. Like it's that they're not allowing these metrics to help them make decisions, right? So most coaches focus on, vanity metrics, right? It can be likes, it can be follows, it can be views, or even, the cost per lead, or they understand what their cost to acquire a client is, or their cost per appointment or call is, but they're not sure how to make decisions based on those metrics. So, but serious CEOs, they track these numbers and they understand their numbers, not just from a micro perspective, but from a macro. Now, the key metrics that matter is, yes, your CAC. So when I say CAC, that means cost to acquire a customer, right? Cost to acquire a customer. Cash collected, LTV, and then retention rate. Now, see, the reason why both are important to track when it comes to your cost to acquire, your LTV, and your retention rate is because here's the thing, right? Just because you have a higher CAC doesn't necessarily mean that your profit margins are smaller, right? Like a coach with a higher CAC but stronger retention can significantly be more profitable than a coach with cheaper leads or terrible retention, right? So like, for example, if your CAC is $600, right, but the total LTV within a 12-month period, $7,500, right? Like, wouldn't you spend, close to $750 to make $7,500? Like, we'll do that all day, right? But then again, it could be a coach with a CAC of $150, right? But their LTV is $1,800, right? Like, which one would you prefer? You get what I'm saying, right? So the profitability doesn't necessarily mean just because you have a low, cost to acquire a client. We also need to understand what is the LTV, and the retention rate is going to allow the LTV to be much more higher, right? And also, changing things in your messaging, upgrading the sales process, the market messaging, the marketing positioning, the offer and things like that to, increase the pricing of the initial program as well, right? So this is why these numbers are important, okay? So the money is not always made on the first transaction. That's very important. I have clients that have been repeated clients over the last 4 years, okay? So, and then I also work with clients that have repeated clients that they've been working with for 2 years, 3 years, or they'll work with them for 2 years, solve one problem, right? And then another problem occurs in a different season of life. And then that client comes right back to the coach to solve that problem, right? So this is why I say it's very important for coaches to solve complex problems, because when you become a coach that does solve those complex problems at different levels and different stages and different seasons of your ideal person's life, then yes, that's one thing that will increase your LTV. All right. So the power of retention can be the thing that really changes things for you. Okay. So, and really it just comes down to focusing on better client transformation, better client experience. If your clients are not staying, your systems are incomplete. Okay. So if you don't have, I would say a minimum of 30% retention rate, your client fulfillment systems are incomplete. After your initial program, I like to tell my clients to aim for 40%. 30 isn't bad at all, but like if you're retaining clients at like 20% or 10%, you got to make improvements on client service. You got to make improvements on a client fulfillment. Like it just is what it is, right? Okay. So retention is connected to identity transformation, emotional support, community, solving complex problems, leadership, personalization, client experience. Like right? This is what retention is related to. Future belongs to transformation ecosystems, not generic coaching programs anymore. This is why in, the previous 2 videos ago, I was talking about the 5 things that every coach needs in order to dominate in 2026 and to not get put out of business in 2027. And the first one that I mentioned was service. You can't get away with a mediocre service anymore. The cost to acquire clients now, equity when it comes to engagement from prospects on social media, it's a lot higher now, right? So if you're gonna have prospects that invest time, energy, and money into your program, they want to get a good experience. If they're not gonna get a good experience, they're not gonna tell other people about you. You're not gonna get transformations and client testimonials and positive reviews. You may start getting some negative reviews, right? And that's just going to devalue the entire coaching business. You can't ignore the service. You got to have a good service. If you had a good service before, you can't ignore that and not make improvements on it. You got to meet the clients where they are in this season and then hold them to a higher standard of where they actually want to go. In order to do that, you got to make things better. What this actually creates, okay? So this creates the result. So better decisions for you as a CEO, better systems, less emotional chaos, more freedom, more impact, more predictable growth. When we look at these numbers, we can actually make prediction, not guessing. We got to make decisions, implement strategies and systems inside of your business that can give us the actual result that we want. Okay. So the goal is not just more money. The goal is building a business that actually supports your life and your clients. Now, one thing that I see a lot too is when fitness and wellness coaches start actually tracking their metrics, they don't really know what good is, what average is, what excellent is, what phenomenal is. Like I was having a call with one of my clients last week and we were looking at his metrics, and right now, his cost to acquire a client is $178. Okay. And, we were talking, he was like, yeah, the numbers is cool. I'm like, cool. I'm like, bro, you're spending $178 to get a client. And then the minimum amount that he's collecting up front is cash is $500. So let's do that math real quick. So if we take 178 and we want to times that by 3, that's $534. Like I said, he's collecting a minimum of $500 from every new client that he enrolls. Okay. By the way, he's only spent about $700 on ads right now. Okay. So he's in a phenomenal spot because one new client is able to finance the next 3 clients, right? Not to mention the additional cash flow that he has coming on the back end because his offer is $1,500. Okay. So if he's collecting $500 up front from every single client, that portion, just that portion of the $1,500 is able to finance the next 3 clients that's going to pay him $1,500 with a minimum of $500 to start. So yes, those are phenomenal numbers, right? Those are not average numbers. Okay. So like average numbers as far as like a cost to acquire a client can be anywhere between, $350 upwards to $1,000 or sometimes $1,500, depending on how sophisticated the actual offer is, right? So he's spending $178 to acquire a client, right? So that is phenomenal. That is excellent. That's not okay. That's not average. All right. So as you see here, this is a glance of the industry benchmarks to let you know what's good, what's bad, what's phenomenal, what's excellent. All right, as you see here with the CAC, right, where I like for my clients to be is, of course, we want all of our clients to be at good or excellent, but that is not realistic. It's not going to always happen for every single client. And a lot of times it has nothing to do with your ad strategy, right? But everything to do with your personal brand, the person that you're targeting, your offer, and things like that, right? And this is why I say the LTV is very important, okay? Because say you have a CAC at $500, right? It's like, instead of trying to get that CAC to be, instead of trying to lower your cost to acquire a client, how about we focus on increasing the LTV, right? Because just to be honest with you, depending on what industry you're in, depending on who you're targeting, if you're targeting business owners, or 6-figure earners, or, 6-figure high performers, or a very specific, niche, like the messaging can attract the right type of person that you want to work with and they can be aligned. But the reality is, like, it may cost cost more to actually acquire that client because there may just be a smaller pool of people in that market, in that niche, right? So your TAM is very important when it comes to not just how much money you can generate inside of your niche, inside of your industry, but also how much will it actually cost you to acquire a client. So your TAM is your total addressable market, right? So if your TAM is smaller because you're targeting a very niche and specific audience, so like it's a smaller audience, right? Meaning that it's less than one. If you're trying to target the 1%ers, that means it's going to be less than 1% of these people that you will be able to not just target, but now you'll be able to actually enroll them. So because there's not a lot of them, in the United States or on earth, that may be why your cost to acquire is a lot higher. But if the niche is smaller and it's, only, 1 to 5% of them, in the United States, your CAC may be higher, but you can charge more because it's much more specific. They can't go up the street or around the corner to get it. The messaging is on point and you're pretty much the only person that they can come to. So you can charge more upfront and they're going to stay with you long term because as we know, fitness, wellness, health, it takes more than 6 to 12 months to solve a problem for good. So that increases your LTV too. All right. And then your close rate, like I was talking to a client last week and her close rate was 54%. I'm like, listen, guys, y'all see this, right? Based on this chart, 50% is above excellent. 50%, like 54% is phenomenal. So I want you guys to understand what good, excellent, average, below average, right? So churn as well, right? You want to understand like what your monthly churn is. So if you got 8% of clients, churning out of the actual program, like we got to focus on the client service. We got to focus on the client fulfillment part, right? 4 to 7 to 8% is average. 2 to 4% is good. 2% is excellent, right? And then your retention and re-sign rate. Like I told you, I like to tell my clients to aim for 40% and up because that is good. Anywhere between 40 to 60%, 60% or more is excellent. 20 to 40% is average. Anything below 20%, we got to focus on the actual client fulfillment, right? So if you're not retaining more than your 30% of clients, your main focus should not only be client acquisition. You got to start focusing on client fulfillment too, because once you can focus on client fulfillment, you can get more client testimonials, more client reviews, but not just that, you'll start to understand more of what your actual client needs. Guess what we can do with that information? Make the offer better, make the messaging better, make the market positioning better, make the sales better, make the ads better, right? So don't ignore the client fulfillment and client experience, right? Now the LTV to CAC ratio. So 2 to 1 below average, 2 to 1 between, 3 to 1 is average, 3 to 1 to 5 to 1, that's good. We would definitely want to focus on and get you in the range of good and excellent. That's what we want you to be, what we want all of our clients to be. So most coaches are trying to scale before improving their economics, right? You don't want to scale chaos. Like we don't want to do that, okay? You scale efficiency. That's how we can actually scale. Now, what these numbers mean, we want to understand what below average, good, like what are all of these, mean? Like, what does this look like emotionally and operationally, okay? Because bad numbers create burnout. Like, that's really what it is, okay? Good numbers create freedom. And I know you don't want to be burnt out. And I know you want freedom, okay? So below average, that means you have high costs, you have low conversions, you have high churn. Like that's really hard to scale, but really easy to burn out. Okay, now if you're average is not bad. Average is definitely scalable, right? Like you're sustainable, but you're just leaving a lot of leverage on the table, which is fine because you can scale average while making improvements in the areas that you need to focus on, okay? Now good means that you got good profit margins, it's predictable, and you're positioned to grow efficiently. So below average, high costs, low conversions, high churn, hard to scale, easy to burn out, right? Now, what this looks like is you're working harder for less, right? Like you're really like chasing your tail. Now, average, like you're sustainable, but you're leaving a lot of leverage on the table. Like you can grow a business and still focus on the areas that you need to focus on. But what that looks like is consistent result, but not scaling fast. Profits are decent, but not extraordinary. Like I said, profitable, predictable, positioned for growth, and you have a lower cost to acquire, better retention, stronger cash flow. Like, this is where, if you're in this good space, I mean, probably like the only thing that you really need to do is just spend some more money on ads, right? I'm gonna just be honest with you and control your emotions. Now, excellent, which is very rare, right? But people do fall in this category, okay? You know, like, you have high leverage, strong unit economics, and scalable, right? More cash flow, more freedom, faster growth with less stress. Now, the client I was telling you about earlier, who has the cost to acquire client at $178, right? That is excellent. That is excellent. That's strong economics. You know, cash flow is coming in. His close rate is around like 40%, right? And he's also now about to start adding medical weight loss to his actual offer. Now, the good thing about him adding medical weight loss, that'll allow his cash flow to go up and his close rate to go up. He is in the excellent category and definitely ready to scale fast and put more money into ads and, you know, bring on some team members. Now, I know what you're asking. You like, okay, like, what is really possible for me with all of these systems that you're talking about, Coach Harry? All right, so let me show you. And this is why consistency matters more than anything else. So like I told you before, we want to look at things from a macro perspective, okay? Because the reason why people end up turning off their ads, stop doing what they're doing, is because they're only looking at things from a micro, right? Because the reality is, everybody's not going to start off with excellent numbers. That's okay. You can start off with average numbers and then work your way to good, then work your way to excellent, okay? And that's totally fine, right? So regardless of what stage you're in, you'll still be able to see from a macro perspective what's possible in the next 6 to 12 months. So what I'm doing here is just using an example with some realistic numbers. These are not even excellent numbers. These are realistic numbers, okay? So if you have a monthly ad spend of $1,500, you enroll 3 new clients, your close rate is 30%, you have an offer priced at $2,500, your cost to acquire that client is $500, your retention rate is 30%, monthly revenue $7,500, monthly cash collected $4,500, right? Now, using my client financing system, when you're doing this at scale, this is what's possible over the next 6 to 12 months. Monthly ad spend can go from $1,500 to $10,000 plus. You go from enrolling 3 new clients monthly to 20 to 30 plus new clients. Your close rate goes from 30% to 40 to 60%. Your CAC can go from $500 to $100 to $150. Retention rate 30% to 50 to 60%, your monthly revenue can go from $7,500 to $50,000 plus, along with the cash collected, okay? So you gotta have consistent systems, you gotta have better numbers. When you get that, guys, you will have more freedom, more impact, and you will make more income. Because that's the thing, small improvements across multiple metrics can make massive growth, guys. Massive growth. Now, the compound effect, consistency. I promise you guys, like, you don't need more motivation. You don't need more Instagram reels. A lot of that stuff you don't necessarily need, okay? You need better systems, for sure. Systems for your ads, for your sales, for your marketing. You need a better operating system for you as a CEO. You need better decision-making and consistency long enough for the compounding to actually happen. So that is the thing, right? Is like, coaches don't implement it long enough for compounding to happen. So that is the thing. Coaches are not consistent enough and they don't implement things daily, because it's not saying that, like, you know, as a human, you're going to have certain emotions when you're implementing these tasks. But when you can look at these numbers and when you can have an operating system, like, i.e. the CEO operating a line system that gets you in alignment so you can make the best decisions, this actually gives you a chance for your numbers to actually compound. But if you don't have that in place, you don't give yourself a chance. You will fuck it up. You will procrastinate. You will self-sabotage. It is going to happen. You gotta have something in place that will beat the procrastination, beat the self-sabotage, beat the self-doubt, beat all of those things, so we can look at these metrics and make the best decision moving forward. So if you need help building a more sustainable, profitable, and predictable coaching business, listen, I actually have a client financing ads calculator that helps clients understand their cost to acquire client, their retention, their LTV, their cash flow, their reinvestment, and this helps them scale sustainably and see things from a macro perspective, not a micro perspective. Head over to my Instagram and message me the word ad systems, and I will send you this exact calculator to you for free at no cost, and we can schedule a call together where I can customize this calculator based on your offer and your numbers to show you what's possible for your specific situation. And if you want help with the entire system, everything from your ads to your sales systems, structuring your YouTube to leverage long form video, the CEO operating system, and one-on-one coaching and mentorship directly from me, then you can apply to work with me right there inside of the DM. Just let me know.